Yes! With that sound, you know the time. The vibe is right. The vibe is right. It's Sunday, August 17. It's the 138th anniversary of the birth of Jamaica's first national hero, Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Welcome to the CCRP update. CCRP was created as a legacy project by Procom to empower, celebrate, and protect Jamaica seniors. They offer many benefits. Visit our website, ccrponline.org. CCRP Update is brought to you by J&J Silver Shield, the best choice for auto and property insurance, exclusively for CCRP members. Contact Gallagher Insurance Brokers or J&J for best value and a boatload of benefits. In today's update, we reflect on the monumental global impact of Marcus Garvey. Earlier this week, we caught up with Mr. Stephen Golding, president of the Jamaica branch of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, the UNIA. But first, a little family business. Our CCRP update sponsors BCIC offer their amazing J&J Silver Shield plan for auto and property insurance exclusively for CCRP members. The auto plan includes free benefits from the Jamaica Automobile Association with valet service for vehicle registration, fitness, and 24-hour roadside assistance. Help us to fight for your rights. When you're a CCRP member, you're actively supporting the rights of seniors and the elderly. We've been passionate advocates for your rights. If you're 40 years old or over, you are eligible to join the CCRP. When you join CCRP, you open up a world of exciting events and money savings discounts. For only an initial registration fee of $2,500 and an annual renewal of $2,000, you will have access to discounts of up to 30% from our over 100 discount partners. CCRP also offers 3 high-value health insurance plans for local and international coverage. Don't forget, 40 years old and over, and you can be very much part of our growing and tightening membership. Please check your email for details on our excursion to Swift River, Hope Bay in Portland on Saturday, the 30th of August. And this includes tour bus transportation, delightful breakfast and lunch. You may book by calling our tour organizer and visit her at the CCRP head office this Thursday from 10 a.m. to finalize the arrangements. On next week's program, Mr. Linford Reese, J&GI Senior Manager Distribution and Marketing at BCIC, will provide information on all things you can do online, including renewal of the Silver Shield policy for CCRP members. And now to the core of today's update. 1907, Marcus Mosiah Garvey emerged as a champion of the people. On this day, 138 years ago from his birth, wow, we welcome Mr. Stephen Golding, president of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, UNIA, to share some insights about the legacy of the great Marcus Mosiah Garvey and the continuation of his vision through many organizations and institutions such as the UNIA. Welcome to the CCRP update.
Greetings to your listeners. Glad to be here. Great Garvey Day to you, sir.
Same to you. What aspects of Garvey are we not necessarily leveraging the way we should that are still relevant and they're available to us because he was very clear in the foundations of his beliefs?
Well, I think the principles of Garveyism are enshrined both in the slogan and the motto of the organization, the first organization he founded, which is the Universal Negro Improvement Association. The slogan "Race First" is also often associated with Garvey, even though he did not coin that one. One God, one aim, one destiny, Africa for the Africans at home and abroad, but more so in the aims and objectives that he laid down for the association and league that he founded in Kingston, Jamaica on July 20th, 1914, which are mainly to establish a universal confraternity amongst the race, to promote the spirit of pride and love, to reclaim the fallen and assist the needy, right? To establish institutions for the racial and cultural education of our people, right? To conduct a worldwide commercial and industrial intercourse amongst our people, to establish, agencies for the principal representation of the race in the major cities of the world to aid in the development of independent African communities, right? And also to work for the general uplift and greater welfare
Mhm.
of individuals of African descent, wherever they may be on the globe. Let's not forget that Garvey found the largest mass movement of African descendants in his day. He referred to us as the Negro race. And we still recognize the fact that the Negro race is the oldest branch of the human family and from which all other branches have sprung. Modern science testifies to that. So, yeah, that's Garveyism in a nutshell. But I think where we have fallen down most of all is the area in which Garvey spent his final years focusing on. People have to forget that the commercial and industrial aspect of the organization is what he sort of sprinted into in the early years. But those were not able to hold up under the weight of the miseducation that the race was suffering from. And so in his final years, primarily between 1935 and 1940, Garvey turned his attention to the education of the masses, trying to teach them the basis and the foundations of Garveyism. He developed what he called the School of African Philosophy, which he taught by correspondence first in 1936, and then in person in Toronto, Canada in 1937 and 38. And it was meant to develop the next generation of leaders for the UNIA. And a few of those students, I think he had 11 in the first year, did go on to become either commissioners or presidents or president generals within the organization. But I still think that in terms of mainstreaming that amongst Africans, both at home and in the diaspora, Garveyism remains the essential part of his legacy that we sort of ignored for too long. But hopefully in this 21st century, we're seeing a refocus and attention, the right attention being given to that. I myself, for the past two decades, have spent time not only teaching teachers how to teach Garveyism, but piloting programs through the educational institutions, both at the primary and secondary level, even at the tertiary and at the correctionary level, because we did for several years teach Garveyism at the Tower Street General Penitentiary here. Currently, we're focused on the early childhood institutions. We recently have put out a book called the Daddy Marcus Nursery Rhymes, which of course is a play on Mother Goose and her nursery rhymes, in which we have sort of Jamaicanized and Africanized those 300-400-year-old nursery rhymes and fables that the early childhood institutions are still today young Jamaican minds with. And we have to understand that those nursery rhymes and those fables are all based on the culture and history of our colonizers. And so we have identified that as the seed of white supremacy that is planted within their minds at such an early stage. When your nursery rhymes only refer to king and queens of European countries, when they only speak to European traditions, you're immediately growing up a child with not only a lack of knowledge in terms of his own past history, origin, and culture, but we have transformed Baba Black Sheep into Bobo Ashanti. We have transformed Mary Mary quite contrary into Nanny Nanny quite uncanny. We've transformed Hey Diddle Diddle to Hey Jinga Jinga, Angolan Queen and Zinga, right? Jack being nimble is Kojo was nimble. And so forth. Little Miss Muffet is now Little Miss Lou, who was cooking her stew. And we are saying that Garveyism is not only an essential tool when it comes to the education of our people, but it is an essential tool in terms of the social engineering of our society. And it will bring relief to some of the pains we are feeling socially from how we treat each other. How we treat each other comes from a culture that one not only divorces us from the corporate and industrial structure, which is controlled by the minority of Jamaicans who are not of the majority race. The most significant and visible things now in the 21st century is the issue of reparations. And we have seen how that has developed over the last 3-4 decades to where, 30-40 years ago, black people didn't even think that was a consideration. In fact, we would laugh at and ridicule those amongst our society who kept talking about it. Now we're in an age where we hear the vice chancellor of the most prominent university in the region referring to the 21st century as a century for reparations. We see articles in the British newspaper, The Guardian. We hear politicians speaking about it, both here in Jamaica, in the United States, in the United Kingdom. The African Union has even declared their theme this year, a theme of reparations for Africa. So that has come a long way. And that is also significant because it speaks not only of, lost payment for labor that was taken from us by force. But it also speaks to repairing the narrative, much as we were just referring to repairing the narrative of nursery rhymes, repairing the narrative of the history of enslavement for African people, and the whole story about the abolition and the emancipation, and moving it from the point of view of thinking that it was a gift from the British, as opposed to a war that was fought through many battles over many centuries and for which reparations are justly due. Because at the end of every war, the opposing sides must sit down to talk about repair and reparations. That is a natural part of war. It goes a long way in readjusting that, both in the minds of the society and the political leadership. And once we get to the history books and reclaim and rewrite that narrative, it will speak in the annals of history for our posterity and future generations.
Any quick final word?
I think as we're coming up on a general election here in Jamaica, I need the Jamaican people to consider not just which political party they want to lead them, but to pay close attention to the issue of constitutional reform. Marcus Garvey spoke about these things in his own thesis on governing the ideal state, which is contained within his philosophies and opinions, first published in 1923 with a second volume in 1925. Get a copy of that for the listeners who don't know what I'm talking about. But make no doubt about it, the Jamaican people have always been invested in who becomes the executive leader of this country, whether it's going to be a prime minister or a president. But if it's going to be a president, give them what they want, which is an executive president who is elected by the people, not the political parties, and invested with the power to deliver for the people those things that they want to hold him accountable for. We've been saying this for a long time. Those who are of like mind and would like to support us, I say look for us on social media at UNIA Jamaica. That's our social media handle, one word, UNIA Jamaica, and lend your support, because the transformation of this country should not be held within the hands of less than 30% of the population. Our ancestors fought for emancipation, they fought for independence, they gave their lives, they shed their blood. We, their descendants, who they understood were a part of this intergenerational fight for freedom, cannot turn our backs on them. Now we need to pay attention to the politics of our country. We need to raise our voices, and we need to demand full power to the people now.
President of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, UNIA, thank you for your time. Thank you, fellow CCR peers and friends, for joining us. Until next Sunday at 3, for all things CCRP, visit our website, ccrponline.org, and of course, our YouTube channel. If you're 40 years old or over, we look forward to welcoming you as a full CCRP member. Why wait? It opens up a whole world of insights, networks, exciting events, money-saving discounts, and more. Build the connection, share the experiences, and keep informed now to make the very best life choices before retirement hits. CCRP Update, brought to you by J&J Silver Shield, the best choice for auto and property insurance exclusively for CCRP members. Contact Gallagher Insurance Brokers or J&J for best value and a boatload of benefits.